When I stepped off the train, the summer air hit me like a wave, warm, full of promise, and just unfamiliar enough to remind me I wasn't home. It had been years since I'd visited the coastal town Alex called home, and even longer since I'd taken a break from the slow-burning wreckage of my personal life. Alex greeted me at the platform, arms outstretched, grinning like we were still in college. "You look like hell," he said affectionately. "Thanks. That's the look I was going for," I replied, managing a smile. He took my bag, slung it over his shoulder, and led me to his car, a beat-up silver hatchback that rattled like a tambourine every time he hit the brakes. "I still can't believe you actually came," he said as we pulled out of the station. "I needed the escape," I admitted, eyes on the winding road. After everything, I just needed to reset." Alex nodded, expression softening. "Then this is perfect. No drama, no stress. Just us, junk food, and bad movies." That was the plan. His house sat on a quiet cul-de-sac, shaded by leaning trees, and wrapped in the smell of salt and barbecue smoke from nearby yards. It was charming, lived in. One of those homes where you could walk barefoot without thinking about it. As we stepped inside, I was greeted by cool air, mismatched furniture, and a faint scent of sandalwood. "Make yourself at home," Alex said, kicking off his sneakers. "Guest room's upstairs, first door on the left." "Oh, my brother's here too. Liam. He's in town for the week." I froze for half a second. "I didn't know you had a brother." Alex laughed. "He's 5 years older. Kind of a mystery man. Always in and out. Never really sticks around long enough for anyone to get a read on him." I gave a non-committal nod, more focused on the stairs and the thought of a shower than on whatever half-shadow Alex had just mentioned. But then Liam walked into the hallway, and the air in my lungs seemed to stall. He was tall, taller than Alex by a few inches, with dark, wavy hair that looked effortlessly messy, like it had been tousled by the ocean breeze instead of a comb. His eyes were a sharp hazel, curious and confident. There was something easy about him, like he didn't need to try. "You must be the famous best friend," Liam said, his voice smooth, low. "I've heard entirely too much about you." I laughed awkwardly. "Hope it was mostly good." "Depends on who you ask," he said with a half-smile, then turned to his brother. "You didn't say your friend was cute." Alex rolled his eyes. "Jesus, Liam." But Liam didn't look away. It was probably a joke. I told myself it was. The way his gaze lingered just a second too long, that was just his personality. Some people were naturally flirty. It didn't mean anything. Besides, I was barely holding myself together, fresh out of heartbreak, and not interested in collecting more emotional baggage. That night, the three of us ate takeout on the couch, watching a terrible zombie flick and arguing over which fast food fries were superior. Alex fell asleep halfway through, stretched out with his head thrown back, snoring lightly. I stood to grab another drink from the kitchen and nearly bumped into Liam, who had followed me without a sound. "Didn't peg you for a horror fan," he said, opening the fridge beside me. "I'm not, but I like watching Alex pretend he is." Liam chuckled, pulling out a beer. "He does that. Tries to impress people by pretending to hate what he actually loves." I leaned against the counter, unsure how to respond. There was a strange intimacy in the way he talked, like we were already in on some shared secret, like we were circling something unspoken. He handed me a soda, our fingers brushing, and for a moment I felt it again, that heat under the surface, that pull I didn't want to name. "So, you and Alex," he said casually. "Ever a thing?" I blinked. "God, no. Just friends. Always have been." He raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." There was nothing overtly inappropriate about the way he looked at me, but it carried the charge of something just under the line. A curiosity, a calculation. I reminded myself to breathe. We went back to the couch. Alex was still asleep, his head now sliding dangerously close to a bowl of chips. Liam sat beside me this time, just a little closer than necessary, his knee brushing mine every now and then. It wasn't much, barely anything, but I noticed. When I headed upstairs to the guest room later, Liam looked up from his phone and said, "If you need anything at all, just knock." I paused at the foot of the stairs, eyes catching his for a heartbeat too long. "Thanks," I said, voice tighter than I meant. The guest room was small but cozy, soft lighting, clean sheets, the kind of quiet that wraps around you. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, playing back every word, every look. There was nothing concrete, no action, No promise. But I felt something shifting. I told myself it was just harmless flirting. I was lonely. Liam was magnetic. That didn't mean anything would happen. Still, as I drifted off to sleep, my last thought wasn't about Alex or the beach or even my ex. It was Liam's voice, low and playful, whispering just beneath the surface. You didn't say your friend was cute. And the worst part, I didn't want to forget it. The next morning was draped in gold. Sunlight poured through gauzy curtains, dust motes drifting lazily in the air like secrets waiting to be spoken. I rolled over, still not quite awake, and checked my phone. No messages from David, not that I expected one. A clean break, he'd said. Downstairs, the scent of coffee and frying eggs lured me from bed. I padded barefoot into the kitchen to find Liam at the stove, wearing sweatpants and a white tank that did nothing to hide the lean muscles of his back. He turned at the sound of my steps, a grin already forming. Morning, he said. Hope you're not too fancy for scrambled eggs. I leaned against the doorway, suddenly aware of the sleep still clinging to my body, my hair probably a mess. Scrambled eggs sound like salvation right now. Liam nodded toward the table, where he'd already set out 2 mugs of coffee and a jar of strawberry jam. Alex had to run some errands. It's just us this morning. Just us. 2 words, innocuous and yet heavy with potential. I took the seat across from him, forcing my thoughts to stay grounded. He handed me a plate. I remember you said you liked your eggs soft. Or was that Alex telling me lies again? My brows lifted. He told you that. He tells me lots of things, Liam replied, taking a sip from his mug. Most of it's noise, but I keep the interesting parts. His eyes lingered again. Too long, too familiar. There was again that static charge, that silent dare. After breakfast, he suggested we explore the town, since Alex would be out for hours. I could play tour guide, Liam offered, standing in the doorway with a mischievous tilt of his head. Unless you're scared, I'll lead you astray. I should have said no, but I didn't. We wandered through downtown, a cluster of indie shops, art galleries, and overgrown alleyways that gave the town a sleepy charm. Liam was surprisingly easy to talk to, witty, quick, always steering conversation just close enough to personal without breaching the comfort line. At a small bookshop, he picked up a poetry collection and handed it to me. This feels like your vibe. I flipped through the pages, pausing at a line underlined in pencil. He looked at me like I was something rare, and I believed it just long enough to fall. You read poetry? I asked. Sometimes, he said, especially when it sounds like warning signs. I closed the book. And are you the warning or the one being warned? Liam smirked. That's the fun part. You never know until it's too late. By mid-afternoon, we were seated on a bench at the edge of a quiet park. The breeze tugged gently at the trees, and laughter from a nearby playground faded into the background. You seem different from how Alex described you, Liam said suddenly, watching the sky. I glanced at him. Different how? Quieter, more self-contained. He made you sound like the life of the party. I shrugged. Maybe I used to be. Before everything. Liam turned to face me, his tone softer now. David. The name tasted sour in my mouth. Yeah. He nodded. You don't have to explain. But for what it's worth, he must have been a fool. I gave a hollow laugh. Thanks. I think. He leaned closer, and there was again that pause in the air, as if time itself held its breath. You're easy to be around, he said. Dangerously so. I looked at him, pulse quickening. What does that mean? His eyes flicked to my mouth, then back up. It means I should probably stop talking before I say something I shouldn't. And then he stood, abruptly, as though the moment had stretched too far. Come on, he said. Alex will be back soon. Wouldn't want him thinking I corrupted you. Too late. Back at the house, the atmosphere felt charged. Alex was in his room, gaming with headphones on, oblivious. I went to the kitchen for water, needing space. But Liam was already there, leaning against the counter, scrolling his phone. He looked up, smiled. We keep meeting like this. Small house, I said, forcing a grin. Liam set his phone down and stepped closer. I can stop, if this makes you uncomfortable. I swallowed hard. It's not that. He nodded slowly. So it's not just me. I hesitated. This isn't a good idea. I know, he said, but bad ideas are usually the ones worth remembering. I should have walked away. I meant to, but he was standing too close, and I could smell his cologne, fresh, woodsy, addictive. My hand grazed his as I reached for the glass. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. "Tell me to stop," Liam said, voice low. I looked up at him. My breath caught. "I can't," I whispered. He didn't kiss me. Not yet. But his fingers brushed mine, then lingered. The moment stretched, intimate, magnetic, and heavy with what hadn't happened yet. And then Alex's voice rang out from the hallway. "Hey, you guys hungry?" Thinking of ordering something. I jumped, heart slamming against my ribs. Liam stepped back, casual again in an instant. "I'm down for anything," he called back, like nothing had passed between us. But everything had. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, sheets tangled around my legs. I could hear the faint thrum of Alex's music through the wall, and beneath that, silence. I imagined Liam just down the hall, the way he looked at me in the kitchen, the way his voice dropped when he got close. It was wrong. It was reckless. But I didn't want it to stop. And I was starting to think. Neither did he. The next 2 days were a dance of avoidance and temptation. Liam and I moved like satellites, close enough to feel the pull, distant enough to pretend we weren't in orbit. Every conversation had a second layer, every glance a tether. Alex remained blissfully unaware, treating our days like a reunion, filling the hours with hikes, late-night card games, and impromptu movie marathons. But beneath it all, something darker stirred. The night the line finally broke was humid, the air thick with the kind of tension that makes skin sensitive to the slightest touch. Alex had gone out for drinks with old friends, leaving us alone in the house. Again, I was in the living room, scrolling through old photos on my phone, me and David, smiling, pretending. I stared at a photo of us on the beach, his arm around my waist like a claim. All I could feel now was the weight of lies we'd carried behind our smiles. Living in the past, Liam's voice startled me. He stood in the doorway, a glass of water in hand, barefoot, wearing that same low-hanging confidence like it was tailored to him. I set the phone down, just remembering how much pretending people are capable of. He walked in slowly, like every step was a question. "You don't have to pretend here. You think I'm pretending now. I think you're trying really hard not to want what you want." I laughed under my breath. "You don't even know me. I know that when I'm in the room, you stop breathing like it's dangerous." Silence. And then I said it. Quiet. Careless. Honest. "You scare me." Liam stepped closer. "Because of what I make you feel." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He sat beside me, close but not touching. The space between us hummed, electric and alive. "You think I'm reckless," he said. "I think you don't care about consequences." "I care," Liam said softly. "But sometimes consequences are worth it." Our knees brushed. I didn't move. "This is a bad idea," I whispered. "I know," he said, and leaned in. His lips touched mine like a question, gentle, unhurried, no pressure. Just a moment suspended in time. I should have pulled away. I should have said no, but I didn't. My hand moved to his jaw, tracing the line of his cheek. He deepened the kiss, one hand sliding around my waist, the other finding the back of my neck like he'd done this 100 times in 100 lifetimes. The kiss turned desperate fast, weeks of tension unraveling in seconds. I felt his breath mix with mine, the weight of his body shifting as he leaned into me, and still I didn't stop. It was fire and guilt all at once, sweet and bitter. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless, dizzy, shaken. Liam looked at me, voice rough. "Tell me to go." I didn't. He kissed me again. We ended up in my guest room. The door closed, the blinds drawn. Everything that followed was quiet, slow, deliberate, like a secret being unfolded instead of spoken. Clothes came off in pieces, like confessions. We moved without hurry, like we didn't want the moment to end, even if we knew it should never have started. There was nothing crude about it. No rush. No drunken haze to blame it on. It was deliberate, chosen, and that made it worse. After, we lay in silence. The ceiling fan hummed above us, spinning like a clock counting down. "I shouldn't have let this happen," I said. "You didn't let anything happen," Liam replied, tracing circles on my bare shoulder. "We both walked into this." "Alex." Liam sighed. "Yeah." I sat up, wrapping the blanket around my waist. "This can't happen again." He nodded, slowly. "I know, but neither of us believed it. The guilt settled in the next morning like fog. Thick, low, hard to see through. Alex made pancakes, joking about his hangover, teasing Liam for disappearing early the night before. I forced laughter, tried to look him in the eye. Liam was casual, unbothered, masking things with that cool ease he wore like armor. Every smile I gave Alex felt like theft. Later, when Liam caught me alone in the hallway, he touched my arm lightly and said, "Are you okay?" "No," I replied. "I'm not." His thumb brushed my wrist. "Do you regret it?" I looked at him, really looked, at the man who was so wrong for me in every way that mattered. The man who made me feel more in one night than David had in months. "I regret the timing," I said, "not the moment." Liam nodded once, then stepped back. "I'll keep my distance, if that's what you want." I didn't answer. That night, I sat in the guest room alone, door locked, heart loud in my chest. I kept thinking about what Liam had said, about consequences, about want, about betrayal. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Alex was just downstairs, trusting, open-hearted, the kind of friend you could lean on without question. And I had betrayed him in the most personal, intimate way. But the truth was, it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt inevitable, and that terrified me more than anything. The house felt colder the next morning. Not physically. Sunlight still trickled through the curtains. The air still carried the soft scent of coffee and soap, but in a way that had nothing to do with weather. Something had shifted. Something had cracked. Alex was on the couch, scrolling through his phone, legs tucked under him in pajama pants that didn't match. He glanced up with a smile that made my stomach turn. "You sleep okay?" he asked. I nodded. Lied. "Yeah, thanks." Liam emerged from the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. He didn't look at me, didn't speak. It was the first time he'd avoided me since I'd arrived. And that, more than anything, made the guilt sink deeper into my chest like a stone. "Thought we could go out for brunch," Alex said, stretching. "One last hurrah before life resumes." One last hurrah. The words rang too close to truth. At brunch, I barely ate. Alex chatted about work, about a new guy he was seeing, but not serious with. He was animated, comfortable. He trusted me, implicitly, wholeheartedly. Every bite I forced down was flavored with remorse. Across the table, Liam was quieter than usual. Polite, distant. He responded when spoken to, laughed when required, but never once looked my way. He was protecting me. Or himself. Maybe both. Back at the house, Alex suggested a walk, but I made an excuse about needing to pack. I couldn't do it anymore. The pretending, the performance. Upstairs, I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, eyes shut, breath shallow. The sheets on the bed were still crumpled. My skin still remembered Liam's hands. My lips still remembered how his name felt when whispered in the dark. This couldn't go on. I had to say something. Alex knocked on my door an hour later, leaning casually against the frame. "Hey," he said, eyes searching my face. "You good? You've been quiet all day." I hesitated. "Can we talk?" That wiped the smile from his face. He stepped inside and sat on the edge of the bed. "Sure. What's up?" My heart pounded. My hands were cold, but the words had begun to rot inside me. I had to let them out before they ate through everything. "I did something I need to be honest about." Alex tilted his head, concern clouding his eyes. "Okay." I crossed the line. The air changed. With Liam. He blinked, processing. "What do you mean? Crossed the line?" I looked at the floor. Couldn't meet his eyes. We kissed. And more. Silence. The kind of silence that stretches wide and bottomless. When I finally looked up, Alex's face was frozen in disbelief. He stood slowly, like the room had tilted beneath him. "You slept with my brother?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He stepped back, one hand running through his hair. "You? How? When did this happen?" "The night you went out." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "Of course. I leave you two alone for 5 minutes, and God." I stood, reaching for him. "Alex, I didn't mean." He flinched. Don't say you didn't mean to. You're not some clueless kid who stumbled into this." "I know," I said, voice cracking. "I know I messed up. I hated myself the second it happened." Alex's eyes flashed, but not enough to stop it. That shut me up. He turned away, pacing. "You were supposed to be my friend. My best friend. You know how complicated things are between me and Liam. I wasn't trying to hurt you, but you did. He stopped pacing, his voice quieter now. Do you love him? The question hit harder than I expected. I don't know, I whispered. Alex looked at me for a long time, then shook his head. You should go. Packing was a blur. My hands moved, but my mind reeled. The walls of the room felt closer than before, suffocating. Liam knocked once, not entering. Can I come in? I opened the door. He saw the suitcase and cursed under his breath. You told him. I had to. Liam stepped inside, his jaw tight. How bad was it? He told me to leave. Silence. I'm sorry, he said finally. For all of it. I'm not, I replied. I'm sorry I hurt him, but not for what we shared. Liam exhaled, like the words gave him permission to breathe. I don't know what this means now. Neither do I admitted. But I know I can't stay. He nodded, stepping closer. Will you call me? I don't know, I said. I need to fix myself before I reach for anyone else. He accepted that with a solemn nod. Then, after a moment's hesitation, he kissed my forehead, gentle, almost reverent. No promises, no declarations, just goodbye. I walked out of that house with a heavier heart than I'd ever carried. Alex didn't come to the door, didn't say goodbye. I couldn't blame him. As I slid into the back seat of the rideshare, I looked up at the window I knew was his. The curtain moved, just slightly, but no face appeared. I didn't know if things would ever be the same between us. Maybe they weren't supposed to be, but I knew this much. That weekend changed everything, and there was no going back.